You're listening to Release Your Resistance with Beltran, episode 122. Welcome to Release Your Resistance. This is Bex. The only reason why any of us don't have what we want in life is because of our own resistance. Right now, I'm learning how to recognize and release my resistance, and this podcast tells you how you can release your resistance so that you can live the exact life that you want. Let's get started. We have come a long way in learning about and practicing letting go and surrender. Do you feel a shift in yourself, in your perspective? Now that we are in the second half of this 8-week series, let's look at everything through a lens of abundance as opposed to scarcity. Remember, you can start at the first session of this series at bexby.org/letgo, Letgo, or just scroll through the episodes in your podcast player until you see episode 116, and that was posted on January 6th. But back to today's topic, looking at everything through a lens of abundance is easier said than done. It all sounds lovely when we think about it theoretically. Everyone can listen to a podcast and think, oh, that's a nice idea. But what happens and what do you do when you are living your life in the day-to-day and something happens? What happens when you face a test or challenge, or when what you decided that you wanted to do doesn't work out the way that you thought it would? Do you just drop everything and hide and call it letting go? Do you surrender like you're giving up and admitting defeat? This week, let's uncover what it takes to pass tests and stick with experiments along our letting go journey. There are 3 main ingredients: wholeness, trust, and learning. Wholeness is when we appreciate our worth, our wholeness, as in nothing is missing, nothing is broken. We are and have everything we need to survive and thrive. And let's just talk about you for a minute. You are 100% worthy and whole. You always have been since birth. Arriving and being on this planet means that you have met the price of admission. You are not more or less worthy or deserving than anyone else on this planet. You are a whole human and nothing is missing. Consider yourself on a journey or a path you are following as you live your life. We've all heard the expression, it's the journey, not the destination. So, as we are following along on this journey or path, we have an idea of who we are, we know what we want, or at least our inner wisdom does, and it also knows why we want. Our who, what, and why can be thought of as our purpose and guiding values. What we don't know is how we will get there on this path. We don't know when we will get there, and we don't know where specifically the path will lead. So on this path, we can feel whole, as in we have everything we need and nothing is missing. If we are on this journey feeling like we are missing something, then maybe we would be looking to fill a hole, Hole, or close a gap. So do you hear the difference there between feeling whole, Whole, and filling a hole, Hole? We might be thinking there is something missing in us. Thinking something is missing or deficient creates fear. And as our minds detect fear, we lean towards lack or scarcity. If we remind ourselves that we are whole and nothing is missing, we can lean towards abundance and wholeness. One of my favorite expressions in recent years is, you can never get enough of what you don't really need. When we think of ourselves as whole, we realize we don't need anything to fill that other kind of hole. When we know we are whole, we know there is nothing missing. When we try to fill up or fill a hole with something that we think is missing, it's not really going to fill us up because there is no hole. We are whole. Sometimes our ego or the mind, out of a sense of threat or wanting to protect, may suggest that we're not whole. We may get the idea that we are not okay. Can I still feel whole even if I don't get what I want or what I think I need? Can I still feel whole when the ego tells me I am missing something, or I would be better if I had something? This is my wholeness being tested. It's not an external test from an outside teacher or an organization where I will get a passing or failing grade that will go on a record and decide my future opportunities. No, this test is a way for me to learn about myself when I notice that I do not control and when things do not go the way I prefer. Everything that I'm sharing right now sounds a little vague and theoretical, even to me, I'll admit, and I'm the one saying it. And the reason why it is so hard to explain is because this is not a one-size-fits-all explanation. We all have different experiences and associations with the word test. Some people have test anxiety. Some people love to ace tests. If it helps, think of tests in the context of this question. How can you show yourself you know what you know? How do you prove to yourself that you have a skill that you need? By testing yourself. Whenever we build or create anything, whether it be a recipe or a software automation, once we get to a certain point, we will say, hey, let's test it. Then we apply stress or pressure or a problem or a simulation, or we take a bite. We check out whatever we just created to see if it works, if it can pass the test. If it doesn't pass the test, we don't quit or give up. We figure out why and we make adjustments, and then we test again. If it does pass the test, we trust and we keep creating and building. We keep going on our journey. That was an example in theory. In reality, we trust ourselves and life. Last week, I was explaining the 3 stages of surrender, and I offered you the memory device of using the 6 W questions: who, what, why, where, when, and how. This week, we can continue to think about those questions as we notice and consider tests and experiments as we trust. We may not want to think of those 6 W questions in terms of what is and what is not my business, like I mentioned last week, but instead you could say, what do I trust and what can't I know? I do trust what I want. I trust who I am. I trust why I want what I want, if it is coming from my inner wisdom and not my ego. I cannot know when I will get what I want, or where the solution or delivery will come from, or how things will unfold as I go about my life. You always have the option to trust or distrust. Think of how you feel when you trust. Think of how you feel when you do not trust. Sometimes we don't allow ourselves to trust out of a sense of protection. When this happens, we can check to see if we are protecting ourselves from a true threat or from a possible future threat or some unknown that may not even happen and cannot be known in advance. We can consider if our self-protection is helpful or overbearing / trying to control. My theory is that tests can be our own internal decision-making points, not some outside authority consciously testing us. There is a sense of relief in choosing to think, oh, this is just a test. We can ask ourselves, what is this testing? Why is this test showing up? Or what will I learn about myself from this test? And as we go, as we notice our tests, we commit to continue to learn. When I was a teenager, I tutored a little girl in elementary school. Her parents and her teacher both told me it was important that I point out when she made a mistake or got something wrong because that's how she learned. At the time, it felt a little aggressive, maybe rude, and it seemed like a novel idea to my teenage brain. We learn better when someone points out our mistakes. But now, after years of application and experimentation and learning, I get it. Sometimes the lessons that stand out the most are when we failed, or when we were called out for being wrong, or had to learn something the hard way. Think about everything you know now that serves you and makes your life meaningful and enjoyable, and even just the things that you know that make your life operational and bearable. How do you know what you know? How did you learn it? What have you learned and figured out in just the past 5 years? What will you learn in the next 5 years? You can think of everything you are trying and failing and succeeding and testing as experiments. Just like the scientific method, your life on this path can just be a series of observations, hypotheses, experiments, and analysis. Sometimes your hypotheses will prove true. Sometimes your conclusions will show that you were way off. So you start a new experiment. It is all learning. Here is this week's verse to practice surrender. Let me remember my inner wisdom is always present. Give me awareness. Let me see the bigger picture. I know I am rational. Let me also be imaginative and creative. Let me discern between intuition and primal fear. Let me know who I am. Let me surrender. This week we have moved up to the third eye chakra. This energy center is all about imagination and insight. The idea here is to make decisions without emotional attachment. Sounds like trusting ourselves and letting go, right? In Maslow's hierarchy, we are staying at the fourth level, esteem. We are noticing our personal acceptance and self-belief. Here are some journal prompts for this week. What signs or nudges from my intuition have I followed in the past? What does my instinct feel or sound like? How about my intuition? How can I shine my light without restriction? The final session of this series will be next week. We will be noticing how we can make this an ongoing practice, and we will be appreciating and celebrating how we have transformed. Let me know about your transformation by sending me an email at hi@bexby.org, or you can leave a comment in the show notes for this episode at bexby.org/tests, TESTS. There are 2 opportunities for us to connect in the next 2 weeks. This coming Tuesday, on the 21st of February, 2023, join me for a workshop and discussion about abundance and scarcity. We will be meeting both online and in person in Gilbert, Arizona. You can find all the details and how you can join at bexby.org/let's meet. Then the following Wednesday, on the 1st of March, we are starting a 60-day experiment of doing a self-awareness exercise each day. I started this experiment by myself back in November, and I loved the results. I immediately knew I wanted to share this with you too. So now we can all do these daily exercises on our own together, and I will explain everything and demonstrate the exercise on March 1st. And then we will celebrate our new extended awareness at the end of 60 days. So go to bexby.org/let's meet to get the details for both the Abundance Workshop and the 60 Days of Self-Awareness. Thank you for listening today. I will talk with you next week, or maybe I'll see you on Tuesday for the Abundance Workshop. You know what I'm really good at? Asking questions, then listening to the answer and redirecting you if you didn't answer. then showing you your thoughts from how you answered. That is part of what coaching with me is like. I don't have an agenda for you. I don't think I know better than you. I do believe in you and your capacity. If you tell me what you want for yourself, I believe it. I can see it for you. I can show you the thoughts that are keeping you from getting what you want. Then you can drop those thoughts and go get what you want. Coaching really works. Come to my site at bexby.org/coaching and book a session with me. This has been Release Your Resistance. Thank you for listening. If you like this podcast, make sure you're subscribed and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Also, think about someone who you know who would love this episode and share it with them. There should be a share button on your app if you're listening to this on your phone. If you'd like to continue this conversation one-on-one or in real time, come visit me on my site at bexby.org to see how we can work together.